Alright, this webinar or training session is dealing with creating and editing quizzes in Moodle. You can see that our outcomes are that you will be able to create a quiz from scratch or to import a pre-made quiz or pre-made test questions into Moodle, that the viewer will be able to create quiz questions in a variety of formats, and that the viewer will be able to establish and set the parameters that they wish to require for their quizzes. The first thing that you need to do is to log in to Moodle. To do that, you go to our Moodle page, which is presentation.learninghouse.com. Presentation.learninghouse.com. You go to login, and then scroll down and find your course. I have a course shell right here that we're going to use to demonstrate how to create quizzes. The first thing that you want to do is turn editing on. After that, you can scroll down to the place where you'd like to put your test. I would like to put my test in the week of October 11th through October 17th. The next thing is to click Add an Activity or Resource. Activities are all those graded assignments that you put into your Moodle course. Quizzes, tests, and exams are all called quizzes in Moodle, regardless of size. So let's scroll down to quizzes because they're in alphabetical order, or somewhat, and click on the word quiz and click Add. Now you'll need to give your quiz a name. I am going to call this the midterm exam. You can give your midterm or your quiz a description. This would show when the students click on the actual quiz, this will tell them what the quiz is about. You can make your description as long as short as you need to be. You can add pictures. You can do whatever you'd like to do in your quiz box here, in your description box. You can also choose to have this displayed on the page so that when the students log into the course, they'll automatically see the description on the page. Coming up here to expand all, this will open up all of the parameters that you can use to create your quiz. The first is timing. This is when you can open and close the quiz. It will be opened and closed automatically, or you can do it by hand. To enable the opening and the closing, you have to click on the Enable box. I will enable my quiz to open now, and I will enable it to close on December 11th. You can also set a time limit. By enabling that, you can choose days, minutes, weeks, seconds, and then the number of minutes or such that you would like the students to have to complete your test. At time expires, please keep this at open attempts are submitted automatically, so that's when students forget to submit a test, as soon as the expiration time passes, all of those open attempts will be submitted. You can also activate a grace period. This means that if you enable it, you can allow students to, which means it's over here, you have to choose this. You can enact a grace period where you can allow students to submit the test, but they really can't go in and answer any more questions. It's just easier if you leave it at open attempts are submitted automatically. Next, you get into the grading category. Some professors choose to have categories, so there may be an exam category in here where you can choose to put this exam. Most faculty just run straight points, so it's uncategorized. If you'd like to create categories, there's a training for that later on. You can increase the number of attempts that students get in order to take the test, and then you can decide how you would like to treat those attempts. I will average the grades, so that means that their first attempt and their second attempt will be averaged in the grade book. The question order, you can have it as shown on the screen, which means that the questions will show to everyone as you have written them on the screen. Or you can have Moodle, the program, shuffle the questions randomly so that each student gets the questions in a different order. That's great if your quiz is not built on them understanding preliminary information first and then building and having the questions build later. There's a new page. That means every 5 questions there'll be a new page. You can increase that to any number of questions. 5 is the best practice. You can also allow free navigation, which means that students are free to move back and forth in between questions, or you can choose sequential, which means that they must answer the questions in the order that you have them. I allow free because my test questions are dependent upon each other. Shuffle the answers within questions, yes or no. That means that if for multiple choice or matching, that the answers will be shuffled for each student so that the questions look different for each student. That means A might be B in another student's answer section. You can choose to do that. That helps protect against cheating a bit more. how the questions behave. You can have different types of feedback. This is an advanced feature, so you can certainly read more about that. Most faculty just leave it as deferred feedback, which will show up down here. Each attempt builds on the last. Again, that goes with the sequential type of test where the first questions build up into the second or third or fourth, fifth questions. I will leave this at no unless it's absolutely mandatory that your students take the test in the order that you have written it. Review options. If you have one attempt at a quiz, the settings that are defaulted here are fine. If you have multiple attempts, I would uncheck everything but that that they have attempted the question and if it's right or wrong. If you choose whether correct or incorrect, that means that it will show them in a highlighted fashion what questions were, what answers were correct and which answers were wrong. So I would uncheck all of this if you have multiple attempts, because that way they'll at least see whether or not their questions were correct. And then after the quiz closes, they can go back in and actually see the correct answers. You can show the user's picture in your gradebook if you choose to. You can set your decimal places. I always set mine to 0. And then I just say same for overall grades. There is a show more, but this really doesn't work for most professors, so I don't worry about it. If you would like to require a password, you can certainly require one. That will help with added security for your quiz. It also means that you will need to tell your students what the password is before they sit down to take the test. Requiring a network address means that you'll supply an IP address that they have to be at in order to take the quiz, and the quiz will not open unless they're at that IP address. That would be for those who take their tests in a learning center or have it proctored. An enforced delay between the first and second attempts, I can set that they must wait at least, let's say, 6 hours. 6 hours between attempts. If you allow more than 2 attempts, you can enable further enforced delays between the second and third and fourth, whatever. And then browser security, I will leave this at none because they have to log in. Grade boundaries, these are where students get specific feedback every time that they hit a grade boundary. You can type in specific types of feedback so that if they get a 100% on the test, then they'll get a pop-up that says perfect. You can also set it to the parameter of 80%, which is a limit for some professors that is the passing. You passed. You can set this at 75%, which says you must retake, and so on. These will be feedback that the student sees when they finish their test. You can add as many fields as you want. Module settings are we don't deal with, just leave them as they are with the default settings. You can add restrictions. You'll see that you can add an activity completion restriction, which means that students must complete specific activities that you list in here in order to take the quiz, such as completing a study guide, working through some flashcards, etc. You can limit the date that they can actually access the quiz or test. You can require that they have a specific grade before they can be done with the test. You can base it on user's profile, or you can set your own parameters by clicking on Restriction Set, and you can create your own list of tasks that they have to complete before they can take your test. Activity completion. It's set to default that students can manually mark this activity. If you have activated student completion, there'll be a box next to the test and they can actually check off that they have completed it. You can also check that they can show the activity conditions when these conditions are met. They must view it and they must receive a grade in order for this to be met. Then you can also limit that to passing grade, and then you'll have to set that. And then you have an expected completion date. This allows this to close on an automatic date so that the test shows up in your gradebook. If you have a end date up here, the completion date down at the bottom really doesn't matter. Once you've set your parameters to the way you want them, and remember that you can always go back and edit and change these parameters, you hit save and return to course. Now you've created the placeholder right there. This is just the placeholder because if you click on it, you'll see that it tells you here are your parameters, but that there have been no questions added yet to the quiz. So now we need to edit our quiz. We go in, we click on Edit. Shuffle questions has been set, so some actions relating to this page are not available. You can certainly take that off, but the shuffle will only be in effect for multiple choice and for matching. Right, the maximum grade for a quiz is set at 100 points. You can certainly change this. Some faculty leave all quizzes at 100 points. Some faculty wait until the quizzes are written and then they set their points from there. I am going to wait. Here's the Add button. The Add, it allows you to add questions from three different places. A random question means that it will select questions from a question bank that you have created and it will throw in random questions. This is great for creating a midterm, great for creating a final exam. From a question bank, if you have imported question banks, which is another training session, you can import questions from there. So I'm going to go to there and show you that I have imported all of the question banks from a class that I teach. So now I can go into Chapter 1 and I can look at all of the questions. So there are several questions, 20, that were a part of this chapter's test, and I can look at them by clicking on the magnifying glass and seeing what this question is based on. Now you can see that it is an essay question, which is why it's got a piece of paper in front of it. These are multiple choice. And we are showing all 34 questions, so you have your choice of multiple choice or essay. Please remember that multiple choice quiz questions are automatically scored. Essays will have to be scored by the professor or the faculty member. So I can preview my questions and choose which ones I would like to put on my quiz. I like this one, so I'm going to check it. And let's just say that I check a few more on here that I would like to include in my midterm, because this is Chapter 1. Once I've selected mine, I click on the button Add Selected Questions to the quiz. And there they are. Now I continue to do this until I have my quiz made up. Then I decide maybe I need to write a few of my own questions. I can click Add a New Question, and you can see that there are several different types of questions. And each type has its own fields to fill in. There are some commonalities among them all. One is you will have to give the question a name. I am just writing a general question. Okay, all questions, regardless of what type they are, will ask you these two things. Remember that you are going to put this in your midterm exam, so you need to change that to the midterm exam because that's where this question is going. Default mark is how many points it's worth. I am going to leave it at 1 point. I can give feedback overall for the question. Maybe I'm going to say and give them a hint. Remember, we talked about this in class on some day, or remember we had a guest speaker for this. Here's where you decide whether there's going to be only one answer or multiple answers. Are you going to have them shuffle the choices? And you choose how you want your multiple choice answers to have labels, capitals, lowercase, numbers. Here's choice 1. Okay, this is the right answer, so I have to go in, and because I'm only choosing one answer to be correct, I'm going to give it 100%. You could choose 2 answers and give both answers 100%, which means that it doesn't matter which one they choose, they get the 100% if they get both, if they get one or the other. Or you can set this one to 50% because then they have to choose 2 answers. That's something you should probably put up here, but they must choose both answers in order to get the full credit. I'm only going to choose one answer, so I'm going to leave this at 100%. Then I would type in random other courses, sociology. Now I'm going to leave this at none because they will not get any points. Psychology. Leave it at none because they won't get any points if they choose this. And criminal justice. And leave it at none. You can have up to as many as multiple choice answers as you want. All of these, if you want to try combined feedback or multiple tries, which means that you will allow them to basically answer the question more than once, but they're going to be reduced points by however many that you think they need to be reduced for each type. You can give them hints. You can clear or incorrect and show the number of correct, add another hint, so you can give them some feedback if you want to allow multiple tries. You don't have to allow multiple tries, it's totally up to you. Save changes, and now I've created my multiple choice test question. And it is right there. You can also add new test questions such as essay, which I said before have to be graded by the professor. Same premise here, you give it a title, you type in the essay information in the prompt for what they're supposed to be answering, and then you give them their default. So let's say I'm going to make this 10 points. And then you give them how many lines they're required, if they're going to be allowed to attach attachments for example, sources, and then information for the graders. What should the essay question actually include when they're grading? I am just typing essay question, and then I'm just going to type essay. You would actually type in the content of your question, what you would ask them to write about. Hit Save Changes, and now it showed up, and there's my essay question. You can always preview these by clicking on the magnifying glass, and you'll see that there is the space. Now, if you don't think that's going to be enough space, you can always go back and edit the question here on the little gear and go in and add more spaces. That is down here where it says 15 lines. Maybe I need to require 20 lines, and you can always save that. True and false work the same way. You write your title of your question, the name of your question, you write in the test question text, you give it a point value, you give the correct answer, you give any feedback response, and then you hit save. All of these are basically the same. Matching, you have to provide which questions are matched with which answers. There's short answer. The trick with short answer is that you have to provide all of the acceptable answers, and you need to make sure that you limit capitalization. Here is matching, so here's the first one and its answer. Here's the second one and its answer. The third prompt and its answer. You can have as many as you want, and then it will add, or it will match them up, or put them side by side, and then the students have to match. Back to when you add short answer, you have to add all of the possible combinations or answers that you will accept. You can decide whether case sensitivity is important or not, and then all of the answers that you'll accept will get 100%, and any of them that you will not accept will get no credit. Some of the short answers you may have to go, especially if you're asking for multiple answers, you may have to go in and correct yourself. So now we have learned how to add our test questions. We have added them from a test bank, and we have added them brand new. You can take a look at your total points. You've got 14 total marks here, so I might want to change this to a 28-point test, which means that overall the score will be averaged out of 28, or I can change it to a 14-point, or I can change it to a 100-point. The Moodle gradebook will adjust the scores accordingly, and then I hit save, and now I have saved my quiz. And I can go back and look at my quiz by going to the midterm exam. These are called breadcrumbs. You can click back. So now you see that there are no questions added, has been deleted because we have now added questions, and we can actually preview it as a faculty member. Remember, we set a password, so I have to have the password to add into this. And here is the quiz. I can actually go through and read it, see if it makes sense, make sure that my spacing is correct. Now notice it has 5 questions per page, so that means if I wanted to add more questions, the next page would have the next 5 questions. By hitting next, it tells me, and this is exactly what students see, that they're not yet answered. I can return to my attempt and answer my questions, or I can submit my attempt, and it tells me that it must be submitted by whatever date, because I only get 60 minutes to take the test. I can say submit all and finish. It's going to prompt me to do that again, and then my quiz is submitted, and this is what students see. So let's go back and look at our outcomes. We have looked at how to create a quiz from scratch and import pre-made test questions. You can also import a pre-made test, and we'll get to that in 2 minutes. Viewers will be able to create quiz questions. We've talked about all of these. Viewers will be able to assign points, set up a testing window, and a password. If you already have test questions created in a test format that you have saved on your computer, you can import a whole test and add those test questions to a spot that you have created in Moodle. To do that, you would just go down to the administration block, come down to Question Bank, and go to Import. I am going to import. Now we need to import files that have been uploaded according to one of these formats. And if you click on the question mark, it'll tell you, but this has to be a zip file format. This is the easiest one to use. This is the Blackboard. ExamView, Cognero, most of the test creation software will let you export to a version of Blackboard. I would choose Blackboard 6.0, 7.0, which is the version numbers. They're the easiest ones, and they're the ones that have the fewest issues. If you're exporting quizzes from one Moodle class to another, you can use the Moodle XML format. I'm going to choose Blackboard because I have a quiz that I have exported from ExamView, and I exported it as a Blackboard 6.0, 7.0 version, and all I have to do is find that file. So I clicked on, if you saw that, I clicked on Choose a File. Choose File, and I'll go to My Places, and there's my file. And notice it is a zip file. It has to be a zip file. It cannot be HTML. It cannot be TXT, TST. It has to be a zip file. I'm going to upload this file. It's there now. I am going to import. Oh, it tells me that there's an error. I don't have anything in this one. It must have been improperly formatted. So I'll go back and I'll find the correct file. So let's go find that file. I'm looking for a zip file. Remember, that's how they have to be. See, now you've got lots of text files and things, but these won't work. It has to be a zip file. So let's find it here. I know it's in here. Let's try. Here is a Gen Psych quiz right there. So we notice it is a compressed zip file. So I will choose that. I will upload it. It is a zip file, so it's a Blackboard file. Import. Again, we're getting an error. Let's see. All right, let's try the Moodle format. Let's choose a file. An XML file right there. There we go. So you can see that we have 25 questions. We hit continue. And now I want to put them in my midterm. So there are all of my questions right there. So I can say, okay, now I'm going to go back to my midterm exam. I am going to go down to Edit Quiz, and now I want to add from a question bank and find that Gen Psych quiz, and now I can choose all of these. I can just hit Hiss, add questions to the quiz. So now I've decided that I need this many questions. Total marks 39, so let's make this quiz worth 39 points. So you can add from anywhere as long as you can access that file either as an XML Moodle file or a zip file from Blackboard. So now we have covered all of our outcomes, and I hope that you will try to add a quiz to Moodle in the near future.